All right, welcome. Turning it to John.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I really appreciate everybody tuning in today. I just want to say Philippe has been great putting these together. These are free resources. They really are. You just leave these with a lot of great information, and it helps you with your career. It helps you network. It helps you just new topics you may not have heard before. And yeah, Philippe, I really want to say thanks a lot. It's these meetups are great.
I appreciate it and appreciate everybody's time and expertise. Thank you.
Yeah, and another part that you mentioned a few times I really want to hit hard on is the NIST Cybersecurity Ambassador Program. We're all a part of it. It's a great network. It helps people in the industry, people trying to get in the industry. It's a great way to network. It's a great way to learn about what other people in the cybersecurity field. There's a lot of niches in it, and I've met so many great people in that organization. Please, and Felipe, if you wouldn't mind, if you could just drop a link to that to the nice website, just so
Absolutely.
everybody. Yeah. Okay, we'll get started. My name's John McNicholas. I just started my own consulting company, Lucid Cybersecurity. I am a consultant. I did about 23 years with the federal government. I have a lot of experience with the risk management framework. You've heard it mentioned here a few times. Frank did a great job mentioning it. 853, version 5 now. There's a lot of controls to that. I know people might think CMMC, you have the 110 for level 2 for the CUI controls. That a moderate RMF package, you're looking at about 1100. So roughly. So CMMC, we're getting off light, right? But okay, we'll go into what I'm going to talk about. The CCP and the CCA certifications for CMMC. CCP stands for Certified, CMMC Certified Practitioner. That's the one you're going to start out with. And the CCA is CMMC Certified Assessor. So we'll go through the slides. Please tell me if there's any questions on anything I'm talking about, if I'm using acronyms that you're not aware of. And I try to spell the acronym out. I actually wrote one a second ago. So yeah, a lot of acronyms. And this is part of the federal government. This is an effort to secure the defense industrial base. So of course there's going to be acronyms. But I want to make sure I use the ones that aren't obvious to all folks. The agenda for today is going to be the CMMC framework, why it exists, the level 3 certifications. We'll talk about the CCP. We'll talk about the CCA, the comparison between the two, and how to get started. And definitely want to hear your questions, please. The more questions, the better. I want to make this interactive. All right, we'll get the CMMC 2.0 framework at a high level. It is the Cybersecurity Maturity Model certification. It's the Department of War, apologies for that, Department of War standard for requiring defense contractors to protect federal contract information and control unclassified information. I see it as a form of third-party risk, supply chain risk. We're doing this more and more ever since SolarWinds back in 2020, I think it was. We're only as strong as our weakest link. And the Department of War wants to know that who they're doing business with and who is providing business and services for them is secure. We're just, protecting our country. And for level 1, 17 practices. And a lot of these need to be done in person. We could talk about that. Level 2, it's more advanced. Level 1 is for companies who are processing federal controlled information. Level 2 is a requirement for organizations to process FCI and controlled unclassified information. Usually you're going to do the 2, but level 2 is for CUI. At level 3, we're not going to talk about that much. That is for your high-end government multinational companies. Think of Lockheed Martin, huge organizations like that. And that's run by that's actually the Department of War does the assessments for that. So yeah, there are the 3 levels of CMMC, the framework you could say. And we've talked about this a little bit, but the timelines, when it first started out, they said, hey, self-assessments, they're okay. But then they started to look into it and people really weren't doing what they said they were doing. So, phase 2 and the contracts is going to start require the contractors, subcontractors. And a lot of the high level, huge Department of War contractors are starting to require their subcontractors. We process CUI, you may process CUI. We want you to be CMMC level 2 certified. And at 2020, November 2027, DivCAC is going to look at all the level 3, but the big one here is by November 2028, they expect all 200,000 possibly organizations to be impacted by these requirements. So that's where, that's how to level set. It's a growing industry. It's a new industry. It just started being required by law technically in 2025. And here are the certifications, some of the certifications. And it's managed by ISACA. It used to be managed by Cyber 8B. That changed recently, honestly, in the last month. So ISACA is now the official CMMC Assessor and Instructor Certification Organization, CAICO. You may hear that term. So the ISACA is the people who you're going to register to take the test with. They're going to, if you pass the test and meet all the requirements that we'll talk about, they are the ones who will issue you the CCP, CCA, and the lead CCA. And the CCI, I'm not going to talk about that one. That's a CMMC credentialed instructor. They're making changes to that. That's most of the audience. I'm not going to mention into that one. But the CCP, it's the entry point into this ecosystem. If you want to be an assessor, as we saw with Ray is a registered practitioner, is a consultant providing those great services to the defense industrial base. That's another track, another way to support the CMMC initiative. We're going to talk about the assessor route here. The CCP, it's an entry point because they help the assessment, and they can't kind of think of it as they're part of the assessment, but they'll kind of answer to and assist the CCA. So in the requirements for a CCP, you have to get the mandate, and this is something please keep in mind, and I want to stress this, you have to be able and to be authorized to get your CCP, take the CCP test. You have to take the training through an approved provider. You can go on there's certain sites, and please contact me. I'm sorry. I wish there was I'm not sure if the marketplace is the best to go anymore because we had some changes in the CAICO. But make sure if you're going to when you get the training for a CCP or CCA, it's an approved provider from ISACA to make sure that you need that to go forward. And you have to pass the exam. You need the tier 3 background investigation. That is something after you pass it, that'll go through if you've been in the federal space. Mine didn't take long because I worked with the federal government. I've heard it is equal to a secret clearance check, background investigation. You do not get the clearance. Please keep that in mind. You do not get the clearance. They're doing a background check on you. And the CCP, they're looking for a degree or 2 years related experience with auditing. Doesn't have to be specifically IT auditing, but it has to be related to audits. And keep in mind, this is why it's a great opportunity, especially for the veterans. They have the experience automatically because they're working in these systems. They're working with, they're the crucial part of the Department of War. So the service members, they qualify for this with hitting that stipulation of the experience. And there's a $200 application fee. So you would take the mandatory training, sign up for the application fee, make sure you have your experience, you pass the test, and then you get the tier 3 background investigation completed. Then you would get your CCP. And the CCP makes you eligible for the Cyber 8B marketplace, which is nice. Because if you're an assessor looking to, even consult, you can be an assessor and consult. You don't have to strictly do assessments, but we'll talk that you got to make sure you don't consult and assess with the same client with their same process being like this year. I think there's like a 3-year limit, but keep that in mind. There's a conflict of interest, and with this, there's a code of conduct that we'll talk about. But the CCA, you're authorized to conduct and score official level 2 assessments with a C3 PAO. And a C3 PAO is the certified third party authorizing official. Wow, proud that I remembered that acronym. But the requirements for that, you have to have your CCP first. 3 years cybersecurity experience, 1 year of audit. You have to have the baseline, one of the 8140 baseline certs. It could be Security Plus, CISM, CISSP. There's a $50 application fee. And the lead assessor, that's the most senior role. You have to have the CCP and then the CCA, 5 years experience, 3 years dedicated doing assessments, the 8140, all of everything with the CCP and the CCA, plus they do a resume review and a few other checks. But mainly we're going to talk about the CCP and CCA here. Please tell me if you have any questions. So we're going to go to CCA. Entry level. And here at the test, we'll talk about the test. Because the test, I took this test in September. I took it in September of 2025. So it's recently fresh. I just passed my CCA in March. So yeah, it's definitely fresh in my head. The CCP, I can tell you from experience, it was a lot of memorization. It was a lot of material to remember. You had to remember the certification assessment guide, the CAP. You needed to know the code of ethics, a lot of other things, and we'll go over them here. But 3.5 hour time limit, you have to score at least a 500. It's about $400 for the exam. They may change. That was the price when it was Cyber 8B. Since ISACA is taking over, these things could change. And it's good for 3 years. And you have to have those continuing education credits, just like a lot of the other cybersecurity certifications. CCP demonstrates your foundational understanding of the CMMC ecosystem, practices, and assessment process. Who is a good candidate for this? IT cybersecurity professionals. I was doing risk management framework back when I worked for the federal government. That is much more stringent. That is what the CMMC practices are built off of. So I felt like it was a good fit for me to pivot into it, and I'm happy that I did. Some other people, program project managers on DoD contracts. Maybe you're not an assessor or don't plan to be, but you want to know what the rules are. You want to know what we need to do. This is a great certification to get a better view, to get a better picture. And anyone entering the CMMC assessment ecosystem. But this is great for people who want to move into this area. It's brand new, 2025. And there is a need, as we saw in some of the great presentations earlier, there's a need for assessors. This is a great field to get into. I feel it is a growing field. I can say that confidently. The training, we talked about it, but I really want to hit that hard. And please make sure it's approved. It's approved, and currently it was approved by Cyber 8B. That may have changed ISACA. My apologies, because I wasn't able to find a definite answer to that one. But you want to make sure, and feel free to contact me after this. I don't want to do it here, but I can suggest. I worked with some great companies. I took 40-hour training for my CCP, Monday to Friday, 40 hours a week, 8 hours a day. But I took my training for my CCA asynchronous. I met with the instructor for about 5 hours. That was great. It didn't affect my day job. I was able to do it at night, low overhead. Great training, though. Great individual I worked with. The ethics training, we talked about that. There's a code of conduct. And I'm not going to go over it here, but I definitely recommend you take a look at that, because you can't have a conflict of interest. You're not going to be an assessor for an organization that your spouse is on the executive board. That's a conflict of interest, among other things, but definitely take a look at that. You have to have a Cyber 8B account, or ISACA, I'm sorry. That should be ISACA. We talked about the experience. They're saying college degree or 2 years, but if you're a veteran, you already qualify. This is a great field, I feel, for veterans who were associated with the IT field, done cybersecurity, would enjoy an audit, because you know what? I've been doing audits for a while. You're always learning something new. That's what I love about that. That's what I love about the field. You have to keep the people you're talking with, the groups you're working with to better secure these organizations. You have to keep them honest, but you have to learn about it, and you want to work together as a team. An assessor is not going to, that's not a CMMC assessor per se, but you need to know the technology. You're always learning. I find that so interesting. Background experience, we talked about that. And voucher, you have to register within 12 months of taking that training. But as currently, the CCP, it's not a requirement to have US citizenship. And you must maintain, as I mentioned, those 120 CPE hours every 3 years. You'll do that through ISACA. And here's the exam blueprint. The CMMC ecosystem, that's 5%. They're going to ask you. It's a lot of memorization. Code of conduct, that's going to be your 5%. The governance and source documents, like how, the assessment process. There's 4 stages to an assessment. The first stage, second stage. You're going to go over that in these documents. The CAP assessment, scoping, the model, construct, and implementation. And there's a blueprint. There's a blueprint for this. And if you haven't already, Notebook LM, those tools are incredible. You take these sources and you can find them, and make sure, this is another recommendation. The sources you're going to study for the current test, and I think the test is going to change in 2027. That's what I hear. Nothing definite, but that's what I've heard. Oh, and I want to mention before I forget, there's some great resources for CMMC assessor training. The first is going to be the CMMC Professional Network. That is on LinkedIn. Derek, the individual who runs that, great person, is great for the community, always putting something new out, great YouTube videos. I watched one the other day. Just a great person and really active in the CMMC community. And also the Discord channel, CUI, Center of Excellence. CUI is just another way of saying CUI, but it'll spell out as COEY COE. Great Discord channel. It goes from beginners to experienced, job boards, just great resource for training and knowledge there for CMMC. So yeah, there are the 6 domains. And, here are the domains. We talked about the code of conduct. They're going to be professional, objectivity, confidentiality, things like that. And what you can and can't do, what you're held to, you have to really know that document. You have to sign that document as well, and then keep a copy of that. The ecosystem, they're going to talk about, C3PAOs, CCPs, CCAs. You need to know what roles are what. And the governance and the source documents, they're going to start asking you about controls. The controls right here. Actually, I'm sorry, that's D4. The model construct, they're going to ask you about the controls, because there's 17 level 1 controls. There's 110 level 2 controls. They're going to ask you, as currently, you need to successfully get 88 out of 110 to even be, you have to get 110 out of 110 to pass. But there's things called the limited deficiency program. You can actually have POAMs, but you have to score at least an 88 out of 110. And there's some of the questions I'll ask you right there. It doesn't cover level 3. So don't worry about it. You're not going to see much about that on your CCP or CCA. And the assessment process, the 4 stages of the assessment process, it's, the planning, the preparation, the execution, the reporting. It's, met or not met. And the current version is 5.61. That's not the most current version. That's not the version that they're using in assessments. Make sure you're studying the right documents for current, that are part of the current test right now. Because if you go to ISACA site or find some CMMC documents, they might be more current. Say they're on version 7 right now. I am positive that the test currently for CCP and CCA is testing off the assessment process guide 561. So keep that in mind. And then the scoping, what's in scope, what out of scope is, with audits, what's in scope is crucial. You have to know what's scope. You got to know what's in scope, what's out of scope. And, that's what they're going to go over in some of these CCP domains. And here's a study guide. You're going to look into, I definitely recommend going over to the CCP blueprint, the CMMC assessment process, the CAP, the scoping guide. I loved Pocket Prep. I thought it was great. It's $30 a month. You pay for it about a month before you plan to take the test. The questions I thought they were pretty good. It was a great, easy way. You have it on your phone, real easy I thought it was a great study resource. And Notebook LM is just incredible. You can build your podcast, your flashcards, and it's pulling exactly from those sources. You don't have to worry about hallucinations. That's the best part. Because if you go to ChatGPT and start asking it questions, or you go to one of the AI prompts, they might be pulling current information. You want to pull the information from the study documents for these tests. So please make sure of that. So yeah, and just, pocket prep, I really thought it was great. And there's some great study groups out there. The CMMC professional network that I mentioned, the CPN, you can find it on LinkedIn. They have study groups, they have study resources, great YouTube channels. I met some great individuals through there. And I'd love to talk to anybody who's interested. I just took the CCA and the CCP. They're still fresh in my head. I got some great study guides I'd love to share with people. Now we'll talk about the CCA. Okay, how am I on time? All right. The CCA, once you get your CCP, you're all good with that. The CCA is where you can really, I feel it's really good money. It's a great step in your auditing career. That we'll talk about it. 150 questions, 4-hour time limit. There's 4 exam domains. It's good for 3 years. You have to have the active CCP, and you need at least a 500. And the nice thing about this is you're doing the assessments. The CCP, and I'm going to be honest, a lot of the jobs now, if you're looking to get into this field, CCP you have to get. But if you're serious about becoming a CMMC assessor, you're definitely going to work to a CCA, because a lot of the jobs I see are all for CCA. Some of them are CCP, but a lot of these C3 PAOs, they're looking for the CCA because the CCA is multi-versatile. It's not just, the CCP is somewhat limited what they're doing, but a CCA can, with 2 or 3 CCAs and the quality assurance person, there's a couple more. Okay. But they are just more desirable, to be honest. And it's issued by a SACA, just like the CCP now. And who should pursue the CCA? If you're serious about supporting the CMMC, if you're an auditor, if you enjoyed what you've learned in the CCP, great. It's a great certification to have. It's in demand. This is a growing industry. If you've worked in RMF, if you've worked in risk management framework, if you've been part of the federal government, we're involved with RMF, the 853, it's a great way to transition into it, because all these controls are built from RMF. So it was natural progression for me, and folks did have experience with the risk management framework. And if you want to be part of a team, and what's nice about a lot of these jobs too, a lot of them are remote. There's only 15 physical controls that need to be done. There's only roughly about 15 controls that need to be done physically. A lot of this work can be done remotely, which is nice, because there's some people who can't travel. Some people, just for some reason, you may want a remote position. There's an opportunity here to have a remote or at least hybrid position. So these are great. It's just definitely one of the benefits of, these jobs. And prerequisites for the CCA, active CCP, you have to have the training. You have to have the training, and make sure it's from a licensed provider. Please, there's a lot of people. I saw it when I was recently going for the training. And the training, honestly, the cost, it could be anywhere from $3,000 to $1,500. But make sure they're licensed to provide this training. I would hate to see somebody spend $1,000 go to apply for their CCA, because you can't even apply. You can't even apply for the exam until that licensed provider provides the verification that you've taken the training. I couldn't sign up for my CCA exam until my provider contacted the CAICO and said, John McNicholas, yep, he did the training, we're good to go. And because I saw it the next day, I was able to go through and do that. The experience for 3 years, it's a little more. They're expecting a little more because you're an assessor as opposed to the CCP, the practitioner. This is one requirement. U.S. citizenship is required for the CCA. The background check, you should already have from the CCP, I think, or at least be working on it. And I saw a lot of individuals, even though their tier 3 wasn't ready yet, they would still go through and take the CCA. It can take a little while, especially folks who have never had a U.S. federal background investigation. So you may want to get the CCP as you're waiting for your tier 3. Currently, you were still able to go for it. You were still able to apply and get the CCA. So if you were able to do that and pass the CCA, your background investigation may come through during that time. So I had a lot of people recommend that. And this this assessment, that they had this listed there, and my apologies, it's not a prerequisite. You don't have to actually be on a specific assessment, CMMC assessment per se. The field experience, I think, they knew I did risk management framework, but you don't have to, at this moment, you don't specifically have to have had CMMC direct assessor experience to get your CCA. And I speak completely from experience here. These are the domains for the CCA exam: the evaluating the OSCs, the assessment scoping. We're going back to the CMMC assessment process and the level 2 practices. With the CCA, you're going into the practices, and a lot of them are situational. I mentioned with the CCP, it was a lot of stuff. Memorization. It was a lot of memorization. Not as much memorization with the CCA. With the CCA, it was situational. So you definitely want to go through. That's what I liked about Pocket Prep. That's what I liked about just networking and asking those questions in the CUI Center of Excellence Discord, because it was great to go, hey, in this situation, what would you do? Do you think it was a pass? Was the intent of the control? Things like that. But yeah, less domains, but a lot deeper. And it wasn't a lot of memorization as with the CCP. Just a suggested study strategy here, Notebook LM. But you want to review all the practices, all 110 practices. You want to know, they're not going to ask you exactly what practice AC 1.5. They're not going to ask you the name. You're not going to have to memorize per se. But you will have to know, with this practice about account management, were some of these objectives, things like that. They'll ask you the subcategories of the practice. I always say control because I'm going back to RMF, but the practice. But definitely know the practices very, very, very well. And as we've mentioned a few times, CUI assets. You want to know them. You want to know people can be a CUI asset. Technology and property can be a CUI asset as well. But Notebook LM was just fantastic for this. Flashcards, things like that. What a great tool. What a great tool. Yeah, but definitely know the controls very well and think about it situationally. That'll help you out. Not as much memorization with the CCA.
Ron, have they mentioned when they're going to change to like 171 revision 3?
You know as well as I, Frank, we are so slow. Yeah. It is so slow with the federal government. I would say, I'm not sure. No, I haven't heard anything with it, honestly. So we'll see. It'll be interesting though, because they'll say it and it'll go in. They'll say it's going to be done November 1st of 2027. It'll really be 2023. Like we should be on IP6, right?
As long as we're lost together, I'm cool with that. I'm cool.
Absolutely, yeah. Ignorance is bliss, right? But yeah, here's the side to side. The application fee for CCP is $200. For CCA is $50. I think they give you a break after a little bit. You need the 120 CPEs with each, but if you get 120 with the CCP, they will apply to CCA. So it's not like you have to get 240 there. Some of the roles, CCP is great for consultant, practitioner, support. And because you might, I'm going to consult. I want to be a CMMC consultant. I'm just going to go with my CCP, which is great. Not just. You got your CCP. I think it's a great idea. And we talked about it. None of this stuff trumps experience. It truly doesn't. What I feel this does is it enhances you as a candidate for a job. It really does. Because a lot of these anymore, there's a lot of competition out there. It's a tough job market. So I felt, getting my CCA was a good way forward, and I've been really, really happy with it. But career roles, if you want to be a C3 PAO assessor, I recommend striving for your CCA. And the career path, we mentioned it, but enroll in the training, the license training, enroll in that. You pass it, it'll help you, gain some, in CCP, might help you gain some experience. And experience could be working with other people. It doesn't have to be specifically assessor experience. But if you want to go further, if you want to be a C3 PAO assessor, definitely going for your CCA. Get the CCA training, and then you pass the CCA exam. And then we're not going to talk about it much, but the lead CCA, that is, they're the people leading the assessments. And just that is it's a great career. It's a great career.
Quick, John,
And just some key.
I noticed
Yeah.
that in order to get your CCA, you have to have performed 2 level 3 uh assessments, right? Does that mean like the C3 APO, like that organization takes on, like, would, like, do I have to be part of their organization, or would they like freelance hire me to fulfill those requirements
Yeah, that's one of them.
for
I
an
wanted to.
assessment?
No, good point, Frank. I wanted to keep that in the slides because sometimes I've heard the requirement, sometimes I haven't, but I can tell you from personal experience, you don't have to specifically and directly have CMMC assessor experience to get your CCA.
Okay, because you kept saying it, but
So,
I wanted to like make sure that I was
yeah,
on the
it was
same.
mentioned, and my apology. I should have
No, 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 no,
probably
no,
left
no,
that out, but
nothing.
yeah,
Good.
yeah, that was. There are updates to this because before the CCP, I was told you had to be a U.S. citizen. Now it's not. So those things, but to be a CCA, you don't have to have the direct experience. You might have to have auditing experience because, like I said, I was coming from the RMF, so
Yeah.
that one's kind of a gray area. So definitely look into that and contact me. I can get a direct answer for any of those who are planning to get their CCA and feel that that may be an issue. But definitely reach out to me.
Actually, John, I feel like I'm the audience for this, sort of starting with step one as the CCP, because now you had me looking it up. I did find a self-study one that I think was coming in just over $1,600.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure they go, as you said, they go up, up, up. But if I was just kind of looking for the most cost-effective way and had the discipline, which I'm quite good at the self-study path, having done so much academics recently.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and of course, having people like yourself and all of the resources that you've referenced. I mean, you know me well enough, and I say this kind of also on behalf of our audience. Uh, it, it seems like it would be worthy in a number of applications to have it. Whether you're and so I guess that's the thing is that, so let's say I'm going to use myself as the hypothetical. If I were to get that, is that something that then becomes my job, or is it something like I contract out with other people and they can pull me onto their team, or is it just super useful, like if I was going to get full-time employment and to be speaking to people about the CMMC and sort of maybe more of an advisory role, like where does it go?
Yeah, I would say for the CCP, it can help you a few ways. If you're an organization that you're going to be doing this every 3 years, continuous, continuous monitoring, let's say, that's one of the best practices for IT security. Period. If you're an organization that's going to be doing this a lot and you're going to be with the organization a while, if I was the CISO or a lead person for the IT security, getting your CCP might be beneficial just to get the whole view of the CMMC process. So that'd be a good fit there. But a lot of times I would say for employment a lot because the CCP, I think it's great for consultants to get that. I've talked to a lot of folks who've gotten the CCP and they were consulting. So that's been a real benefit to them. And it very, I'm all about experience trumps, all of the certifications, and we were laughing about the letters behind names. But it does show due diligence. It does show that you went through it, you studied, and the organization you've proven by passing that certification and meeting all the other requirements that you have the certification. So it's definitely helpful for employment because you can be on the team and it's good for project managers as well. Maybe you're not the person that's going to be specifically doing these assessment. Maybe you might not be an assessor, but the C3 PAOs, they're going to need support staff. They're going to need a lot of other people in the organization, not just assessors. So I talked to one of my old coworkers, and he was saying, a lot of the project managers are real up to speed with the CMMC practices, with the theory. It's not just, so the CCP would really help. I think really help.
No, I know for us, Felipa, one of the things that we're looking at from our organization is like, you've seen our software, right? And so our software kind of enhances all this and it makes it more efficient. But we're kind of like, okay, do we need our CCP, CCA to boost its credibility? Like one of my concerns is like from a DoD perspective, yeah, cool. From a CMMC perspective, that's why I eventually I plan to bring on John and just be like, okay, dude, what are we missing? But at the same time, I'm like, shit, I think our people should probably have at least the CCP. One of my concerns
Yep.
though is like if we get our CCP, John, is the expectation? You made it sound like it's not, but I just want to be clear. The expectation isn't that you're going to work towards your CCA and assessments because we kind of don't want to do that, right? Our goal is to provide software that makes all of that easier, but like not be heavily involved in it. Like that like we want to empower you and your organization to go forth and do great things. So if we were to get our CCP and not do assessments, do we lose it? Because like if we keep our continuing education credits up and everything, is there still a chance
You're
that we
good.
would lose it because we're not
No,
moving on? Okay, cool. Okay.
no, you can keep the CCP. And Frank, in that situation with your organization, if you decide to go that way, or if you move further in the CMMC space, I think CCP is a great fit because it just shows you have the full you have along with your experience, you have the proven, you have the certification, right? From the accrediting body that you have the knowledge along with your experience.
Totally,
so yeah, I think it would be huge. I think it would definitely be beneficial. Yeah, if you see the road. No, but you don't have to. You don't have to go from a CCP to a CCA. Now, I will be honest. If you're going to be an assessor, if you want to work for a C3 PAO and be an assessor, I recommend going for your CCA.
Right. Yeah, that makes
If you're going to be an
sense.
assessor, absolutely. But like what you're doing, your organization, helping businesses get up to speed with their security, having a CCP would help if you find yourself going more and more into the CMC space. But no, I don't feel you have to. But yeah, assessor, absolutely.
That's awesome. No, this has been so incredibly, honestly, relieving. Like just the information you provided, because we were kind of like, man, like it wasn't presented in the way you did. So no, really appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. And my apologies about that. And I know it changes, but you do not have to be specifically and directly on an assessment to get your CCA. So,
cool.
All right, it sounds like it's pretty rigorous, and I obviously I love to study. That's my thing. But looking at, and again, I'm going with the lowest price point. I know they go up. It almost feels like a company could potentially just get someone on their team to get their CCP and almost save the cost of an outside consultant that could be like tens of thousands of dollars. It's just, is that what it kind of like a workaround if you had someone who was like, yeah, I'll do it?
The class I took for the CCP, there were individuals from manufacturing companies. The one individual, his company produced, it was a smaller company. They produced like hardware. I'm talking like nuts and bolts and things. So they took the class because they were confused about CMMC. They wanted to learn better. They wanted to learn more about CMMC and wanted to get the facts straight. Because just like you saw in my presentation, like, well, they changed that. They're that one point, but it's tough to get definitives. So this individual took the class, wasn't planning to become an assessor, own their own company to make sure they could understand what is CUI, because it's tough. Like CUI is like PII. It's one of those gray terms. Like, what is CUI? Is that CUI? Is that not CUI? That's a slippery slope. And Frank, I mean, you being in the federal government, you know that, because it's replacing FOUO. You know what I mean? And it just for official use only. I got to spell the acronyms. I hate when people use acronyms and don't. But Yeah, but there was a lot there. There were 2 individuals in that class of 12 that were in the manufacturing industries and were not planning to take any assessors. But Philippa, back to your point, I think it'd be great for an organization. If you're deep in the CMMC, I personally, if one of my team was open to it, I would love to have them get CCP training, because this way they, really learn the controls, they learn the process, because you want to help the assessors. And I think Frank said this, within like the first hour, a team will know if the client's going to fail the audit or not. And I hate to say that, it's a shame, but you want to be prepared. You want to have all your T's crossed, all your I's dotted before you start that assessment. You may want to work with a consultant. Consultants are a great way to do the gap analysis. That's huge. But having someone on your team that has a CCP would definitely help you during your assessment.
Actually, I think you clarified it's not an and or. It's not sort of say have someone on your team do CCP, or get a consultant. You can spend the money on the consultant as well. I think they have a ton of value to add. So ideally, if you have someone on your team who's willing to raise their hand to do it, sounds like that's a worthy investment to make, because then you have someone through the whole life cycle there who can really be an internal advisor to your team and speaks the language better than anyone else.
Absolutely, because with these assessments, you want to plan for the nightmare assessor. You really do. You want to give them no wiggle room. You want to say, hey, we're doing encryption. Here it is. Here's the proof. Because during the assessment, they're going to talk to the people on that team. They don't want to talk to the CEO about how you do your backups. That doesn't make any sense. So if you know the controls and you know the high watermark that they're going to set, I think your assessment will go smoother.
John, do you know there's been any discussion between CMMC, HIPAA, SOC to start to kind of come together?
You would hope, Frank. Wouldn't it make it easier? I mean, wouldn't it make it? Because yeah. But it's what you said. I see, if you want to do business with the federal government, and this is just me, my personal opinion, I feel in the future they might require everybody to meet governance requirements such as CMMC. So it's in everybody's best interest to get their houses in order.
Right. Yeah.
I love that. Speaking of house in order, we are at time. John, thank you so much. This is really super insightful. I personally am super now inspired to go get my CCP. I just feel like speaking the language would be so valuable as I sort of step into the DIB space. So everybody, we will see you all in the next session. We're going to be joining Darcy for CMMC Beyond Compliance, AI, Governance, Identity, and the Future of DIB Security. So thank you all, and we'll see you in the next session.